Hello, the purpose of this video is to walk through testing and Test Together. The whole purpose of Test Together is to organize testing and to get you into your assigned work items and get them tested as quickly as possible. So when you first log in, one of the new features that we turned on this week is that the state of where you're at is saved. So we have expanded turned on and nothing else checked. The last organization that we had clicked on shows up by default. There are 3 levels of organizations within Test. If you're a single facility, you'll only have the facility level and the test level, and your master org will just point to the same facility. So in essence, you only have 2. But for multi-facility organizations that are doing testing for multiple hospitals across multiple projects at the same time, you can see all of the tests that you're assigned across the entire organization, if you're a resource that reaches across the entire organization, or if you only work at one facility, you can click on that facility and see the test items that you're assigned by default, or you can drill down to the specific test. So in this case, we could do 12.1.0 for PMC or 12.1.1 for PMC. Since I'm not assigned test items, I unchecked Show Assigned. If you were assigned test items, by default you would probably want this checked. I'm just unchecking it so that I have some work items to look at here. If I were to refresh the web browser, you'll see that it will come back to the current state and pull up the test items that you were last looking at. So as we work our way across, the expand toggles on and off, as you can see, and you notice now that when you click on it, it automatically expands or contracts it. You don't have to reload the data here. And you'll notice these little bubbles pop up that say that your preferences are saved. Every time you click on something that saves your preferences, you'll be notified. So you can see here really quick that several of the questions have been answered on the first few of these, whereas the last portion of these haven't been touched yet. And down at the very bottom, you have your page to page. If you have multiple pages, this only shows 30 at a time, and there's only 27 records I can see total. For the facility, it shows that there's 81% testing completion and shows how many remain to be tested. And for the ones that I'm assigned 7. I have one left to test, and I've tested 6 of those 7. So to begin testing, you just click on the first test item, and the PDF document opens up to the page where the testing begins. So you're going to read down through here and complete the test according to the instructions, and then work on the right hand side. So at the very top, there's a section where you can reassign this to someone else if you need a step completed by someone else, and they'll get an email telling them that they have a new test item that's been assigned to them. This is where I recommend that when you create your groups, you put people in individual groups when you have groups that have multiple people in them, so you can assign it directly to a person. After you test, you're going to do pass or fail or one of the other applicable items. This blank, if you accidentally save something, you can come back and blank it out if you haven't completed the test. And below each section is a bar graph that tells you the percentage of hospitals that responded for each answer. So 25% of people said this passed, 13% said not applicable. So there's some floating out there that haven't completed this. This is the only area that does not pre-check based upon what you answer, but it does show you what the majority of other people said about the test. The test time shows you the average number of minutes it took each of the prior facilities to test this work item, and the max and the number. If you want to override this and say you went away for a few minutes and came back and did 15 minutes of testing, you can do 15 minutes with 0 seconds. or you can toggle it back and it will start going in real time again. For proxy testing, you can see here that LHP Hospital Group has completed one test, one answer in this test. And when I mean answer, there's 5 answers. The first answer being pass or fail. The second answer being, does this require configuration? The third answer being, will you implement this item? And the fourth being the risk or importance. And the fifth being the level of education that's required. When you first do your testing, this will have a yellow border on the bottom. You can see the yellow border there. This one has a yellow border. This one has a yellow border. And the education has a yellow background. And beside each of these, you can see a light bulb with a plus mark on it. And this is gives you an idea of what the crowd said. So the majority of people said that this one does not require configuration, and so it pre-marked that for you. And this item, the majority was not applicable. It's split between not applicable and yes. It picked the first one. So you'll want to look at these and determine, because sometimes people pick the wrong ones. And if people aren't watching and reading, then things start to go askew. So this is just a way to save you time, that you don't have to select something if it's correct. If it's incorrect, then maybe you want to change this up to be something different than what the crowd says. So those requires configuration has a 0 for no configuration needed. 1 is a lower risk, something that you can push off after you upgrade. 3 is something that you can do before you upgrade, so it may slow down. If you have a bunch of those, maybe it's going to take you a while to get to the point where you can upgrade because you got a lot of configuration to do. Those are a little bit more rare. And 5 is a higher risk because it will increase the amount of downtime during the upgrade time frame if you have to configure it during the downtime. An example of that might be a new rule in the rule engine that you don't want to fire off incorrectly after you upgrade, so you want to do that during upgrade. The will you implement this test item is more of a definition of when will you. So most of these is yes, no choice, because the system comes with this fix or enhancement that is implemented no matter whether you choose to or not. So it could be not applicable. It could be something that you already configured in a prior upgrade, and it's the same work item in a newer upgrade, but you've already got it configured. Or you could say, no, this might be an example. This might be the ability to fax consult emails to an email address. Well, you can only send it to one email address. It's got protected health information in it. Is it something we want to do? That might be a no. 5, if you just don't know and you need to either ask someone or need management to decide, you would mark that as a undecided. If it's got to be done during the upgrade, it's a 5. If it's the day after upgrade, a little bit less risk. If it's the week after upgrade, a little bit less. The month after, or if you're going to postpone it altogether to an unspecified later date, that's a 1. So that's the implement question. The next one is risk or importance, and it's only a risk if it's broken. It's important if it's a fix or an enhancement that fixes something that was broken or enhances the system. So you have to think about the risk versus importance as two sides of the same coin. So these are also graded, 5 being a high risk, 4 being a moderate risk, 3 being minor, 1 having no opinion, and then there's a couple that go in the opposite direction that said, you know, this was unnecessary and it actually made things worse, or it degraded the workflow altogether, the choice that this configuration change had in the system. The next section is education, and this is divided into really, what scale of education do you need? Do you need classroom? Do you need a detailed handout, or is this just a simple, something that you mentioned in a list of simple upgrades? And then the other option is that you're going to defer it and place it in a post-upgrade manual. So if this was deferred, when I generate my education manuals, this will go into a separate, say I selected provider and nursing and selected defer. So now providers will get a manual and nursing will get a post-upgrade manual that has this work item in it. If you select one of these options, it will go into the upgrade manual for those disciplines. So this is a differentiator here to place it in a different manual if you so choose. So here's a place for a note and who the test was completed by and the date it was completed. Down here at the bottom, the education button, if I click on that, it's going to open up a new tab on the left, and it has a green background to kind of help your brain and your eyes realize that you're working on something different here. So the green education button matches the green background. It kind of clues you in on where you're at. So this is nothing more than a big text editor. There's a specific education video on the front page that walks you through this. So we're not going to go into it in much detail, but suffice it to say, the buttons at the bottom down here are only to be used when you're working on education specific. If you are doing your testing and you're doing your education all together, then you're going to want to mark everything up. You're going to want to do your education, create your manual with the process that we do that, and then save this, and it will auto launch to the next test item. And you'll be done with your education manuals that you wanted to do and all your testing. If you're just completing testing and then coming back after you complete your testing to do your education, then you'll want to use these buttons to navigate. So if previously your item had been marked as a yes, I recommend a detailed handout, and you read the work item, you're like, I really don't need to educate on that. People don't need to know that that was broken. They might not even know that that was broken. It may not be something that we need to educate on. So if you switch it to a no, the Save Education button will save the time that is elapsing, the education question, and the manual configuration. Those three items is what it will save. And if you click on Save and open Next, it will save just those areas and open the next item that needs testing. So again, if you're coming through and just doing this all at once, then just use the Save button up at the top. When you save something for proxy testing, it's going to update that other facility that you have proxy tested for with everything that you have marked on the test. So I'm going to mark this prevent other organizations from proxy testing this test item. If I had just marked this, it would have removed it from Portneuf, because that's the facility I opened this up underneath. And if I mark another facility, it will remove it from Portneuf and the other facility at the same time. So I'm going to remember what this test item is. It's 155885. And I am going to leave it blank. 155885. And searched again. You can see that when a test item is opened, it marks it as being locked for 2 hours for every facility. So if I were to come back up here to the master org facility level and do a search, I would see this same test item locked for every facility. And what this does is that we're assuming that you're going to use proxy testing and that the majority of items are proxy testable. And so when you open a test item, if another analyst at another facility is doing testing at the same time, this will prevent them from having it come up in their list unless they have the show locked turned on, but by default you don't use that. so that you don't step on each other's toes and end up saving over the top of each other and doubling up your work. So when you save, if you have this unchecked, you'll get the next available unfinished assigned test item, and the next analyst at the other facility, when they refresh the screen and click on save, they'll just pick up the next non-locked item that they're assigned. So this way you can dogpile on proxy testing without stepping on each other's toes. So if I open this this test item back up, you can see now that for Portneuf and for LHP, this has been removed from proxy testing. So any other facility can no longer save that test for that facility. And you can see that each of these things, whether they required configuration or not, have flipped from a light bulb icon over to a test together icon, and it shows that it was crowd tested because your choice was the same as the crowd. And there's your provider menu. I'm going to uncheck this. And reset this. Now the other thing that I wanted to walk through with testing is the typical test scenario is you come in and you have show assigned checked, you don't have anything else checked, and you choose the facility that you're going through. I have a filter down here. I have a search turned on, and I'm not assigned anything for Portneuf, but I am for LHP across multiple facilities. And you'll click on the first item, complete the test. It will autosave. It will come back to this grid. It will refresh it. It will automatically click on the next available item for you and open it up, and you'll continue testing that way until everything's tested. Now, these other buttons, show finished, if I click on that, then it's going to show, of course, all the items that are waiting to be tested and all the ones that are finished as well. So then we can see ones that passed and failed. These next two show needs first review. I'm going to select a facility level just so things load a little bit faster. But the show needs first review is a special filter that when you click on it, it tells you what it's for. The first review is used to mark the education, risk, implementation, and configuration fields before you actually begin testing. So this is going to help you to jumpstart your education plans before testing begins. This is an option. Some organizations like using this so that they can go through the work items really quick and look. They can mark the risk and the education, and then they know what level of risk and education, how much education they're going to need to build before they get started on testing. If you are the first organization to do a test, say like a version 13, you may want to do this. If other facilities have gone before you and they've completed their portion, when you run the risk report, you'll be able to see the risk from all the other facilities. So it's really not necessary for the second, third, etc. hospitals going through. So it's really intended for the first ones going through if they want to split up testing versus looking at risk and get a jump start. The next, I'm going to uncheck show assign. So first review will show items that one of these questions is not marked for. So this works just like testing with this filter. Of course, I would want to uncheck show finished because those items have been completely tested, and these are the ones that are blank. And when you click on it, it will open it up. You can skip this testing portion and just go through the answers at the bottom and fill it out. The next filter is show needs education. And this has criteria as well. This is basically going to show you any test item that someone marked that needs education. So that's the first criteria. And then if no manuals exist for it, then it's going to appear on this list. And the education document has to be have a completion date, and the checkbox that associates that manual to your facility has to be checked on the education screen to have it come off this list. So this is basically anything that education is either yes for, or that is blank that you haven't evaluated to see if it needs education, will appear on the screen, and it will work just like a test. You'll click on it, it will mark it as locked, it'll open up, you can come down, decide what kind of education you want to do, if that's appropriate, which manual it needs to be in, go to the education button, and then create the education. You can see that this one has one created by someone else already. It looks like it's just a placeholder. It's not completed. But if one was there from a facility already, you could choose it, or you could choose it as a starting point and just modify it. So that's the needs education. And you can see that when I check that, the show needs first review becomes unchecked, and the show finished becomes checked, because I may have items that need education manuals that are completed with testing, but aren't completed with education creation. So that's the testing screen and how to work your test items. And with the configuration, the whole purpose of how this screen is configured is to allow you to get in quickly to test, see how others are tested, and move on to the next test item and have it automatically come up. One thing I failed to mention is that if you don't want the next test item to automatically come up, you can uncheck this and then either save or cancel, and then you can hand select the next item. So if there's some items that you want to skip, then you'll want to turn off the auto launch so that you can skip down the screen and test ones that you want to test in the order you want to test them.